Hey lovelies, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lovely Channel. So today I have a different kind of video. Obviously by the title you know that I'm going to be talking about my miscarriage, and actually I've had 2 miscarriages. I'm going to be going into more detail about the first one. Not only do I want to share my story with you guys, but I also want to share with you how I have found encouragement, hope, and healing through the experience of these miscarriages and since then. So I hope not only to just share my story and be real with you guys and be vulnerable, but also just share what God has been teaching me and basically just some encouragement for those of you that might be going through the same thing or something similar. I do want to throw out a couple disclaimers out there just in case. First disclaimer, if you're under 18, this video is not for you. If you really want to watch this, I would get your mom or dad first and ask them if it is okay and maybe have them watch it with you, just because I am going to be talking about some stuff that isn't good for kids to hear. It's just more of an adult topic, and so I'm just putting that out there, letting you guys know, warning you. Or if you are squeamish, I am going to get a little bit graphic. Not too much, but I am going to just be real with you guys. So I just want to put that out there. And then second disclaimer, I'm not doing this video in any way to make you guys just like feel bad for me or to pity me or to make myself sound like a victim or anything. That is not what this video is about. Honestly, since this has happened, I have felt several times, time and time again, that God has put it on my heart to share this, just because I know this is something that is so prevalent right now. So many women go through miscarriage or lose a child or just a number of things. And so I know this is really relatable to a lot of women out there, and it is a very hard thing to go through. So I definitely want to share encouragement and hope to any of you out there that can relate. I do want to say that this is not easy for me to share. There have been times where I have put this off because I have been nervous, I have been scared to share this. I love getting to bring you guys along and share some parts of my life with you, but opening up about harder things in my life is really tough for me. But one thing God has been teaching me, and I'm going to go more into this later in the video, is being vulnerable. So this is definitely a way for me to be vulnerable, and it's something that God has been telling me to do. So I just want to be faithful and obey Him, and I'm hoping that this will reach at least one of you, if not more. First, we're going to go back to July 2016, so almost a year ago. My husband and I decided that we wanted to start actually trying to have a baby. At that point, I was 24, he was 25. Right now, I'm 25 and he's 26. We both got married when we were 21, so we were almost married for 4 years at this point, a few months before we were going to hit our 4-year anniversary. And we decided we really wanted to start trying, and we had been praying about it, and we both had baby fever, so we were like, okay, let's go. And in July, when we decided, I was actually already in my fertility window, and I knew this because I had already been tracking my cycle through an app called Ovia. I still use it to this day, and thankfully my periods are very regular. Like, they're almost to the day, if not 1 or 2 days off, but they are very regular. So we tried that month, but I didn't know the exact date I was supposed to ovulate, and we weren't pregnant that month. We tried again the next month, didn't get pregnant, and then the following month I decided to buy the ovulation tests to be able to actually pinpoint the day that I was supposed to ovulate. And so we did that, and then this was finally our month that we got pregnant. So it was the first week of October 2016, and my family was actually in town for the weekend. I think they were here from the 7th to the 9th or the 10th. something like that, because my birthday is on the 9th. So they actually came down to Southern California, and we kind of had like a Disney weekend and everything, which was really fun to celebrate my birthday. And I knew that there was a possibility I was pregnant, so I was taking tests every day. And at this point, it was still a little bit early, so I wasn't expecting to get a positive, but I was really hoping that if I was pregnant, I would get a positive. That way I could tell my family while they were down here. But I was getting negative, and then like one day it was kind of like unclear because it looked like there might be a line, but it was so faint that I wasn't sure. And that happened for 2 days. And this whole time I just kind of had like a feeling that I was pregnant. Like I just kind of knew that I was, which the other couple of months I was like trying to see if I had symptoms, but I didn't really feel anything that different. And this month I just kind of felt like I was pregnant. And then that following Monday, I finally got a test that looked positive. It was still kind of faint, but it was definitely a line. You could see it. I showed my husband, and he was kind of like, yeah, that looks like a line, but he wanted me to take one of the digital tests, and he wanted to see it say pregnant or yes. He wanted to be for sure before he got too excited. But at this point, like I'd been like doing like all this research and stuff, and I was just like, if there's a little bit of a line, it means it's positive. And so I kept taking tests for a few days and kept getting these positive lines, and they kept getting a little bit darker. And then finally on that Thursday of that week, we did take a digital test, and it was positive. It said pregnant. It was one of the first response digital tests. And finally, Brylan was like, okay, you're pregnant. Like, I believe it now. So we were so excited. And I know some people wait to tell their family and friends that they're pregnant, but I wanted to tell everybody right away. The way I viewed it is there is a life that has already started inside of me. And so whether something happens or not, if we have a healthy baby or not, that's a life. And I'm excited, and I wanted to celebrate it. This was my first pregnancy, so we were just really excited. That night we told his dad, and then we FaceTimed my parents and told them. We told a couple of friends. The following weekend we basically like told everybody at our church that we're friends with, and my mom was like, you know, calling all the family and stuff. So we were super excited and just felt so blessed by this gift that God had given us. So then exactly a week from when we got that positive digital test, it was the next Thursday, October 20th, I went to the bathroom, and when I wiped, sorry, TMI, there was a little tiny bit of like pink in it. So I didn't know if that was normal or not, but it freaked me out a little bit because typically bleeding when you're pregnant is not good. I know some people do have issues where they do bleed, but then their baby's completely fine, but it did freak me out. And I was having some like back pain and stuff, and I was trying to figure out if it was cramps or not. And part of me was thinking, no, it's not cramps, it's just back pain. But now looking back on it, like it was cramps. I was just kind of trying to deny it because I didn't want to believe that I was miscarrying. So I call an advice nurse at my hospital, and I was telling her what happened and was asking like, should I come in right away or what's going on, because I hadn't even been in for my first appointment, because at this point I was only almost 6 weeks pregnant, and they don't see you till 8 weeks. So I hadn't even been into the doctors yet. I had an appointment set, but it wasn't that time yet. And so she told me to go into urgent care. So we went right over there, and they had me take a pregnancy test. And when I did, more blood came this time, and this time it was red. And so, sorry. So at this point, I was kind of pretty sure that something was wrong. And they did the test and everything, and it did come out pregnant. They did a blood test as well. And later on, I think it was like the next day, they called me and said, yes, I did have the pregnancy hormone in my blood, but it was so low. So it was obvious basically that I was miscarrying. And that night they just told me that I was basically on bed rest, that I needed to just sleep and everything, because it looked like I was miscarrying naturally, so I wasn't going to need to go in for a D&C, is what I think they call it. If you're not miscarrying naturally, they have to kind of take everything out. But I was fortunate enough to miscarry naturally. I guess fortunate could be both ways, depending on the person. For me, it was better to do it naturally. When we got home that night, I went to the bathroom and there was a lot more blood and everything, and I just kind of lost it. I started crying, and I cried for a really long time. It was like probably a couple hours, seriously, of straight crying, and not just like little tears. Like, I'm talking about like full on like ugly cry, when it's like your whole body's involved. Because it was tough. Man. I'll be honest and say I have had a pretty good life growing up and everything, so this was something, I know that people go through much harder things, but for me, this was something where I had felt the most grief and the most brokenhearted I had ever felt. This was horrible, feeling so joyful, literally that morning, the night before, the week before, feeling so joyful, probably one of the most joyful times I've ever felt, knowing that Violet and we had a baby, and there was a life inside of me. And then, that next day, it just was gone. During this whole time that I was crying and stuff, Bri was there to comfort me. He didn't really say much, which is good, because that's not what I needed. I just wanted to be comforted, and so he kind of just held me and everything, and he was upset too. But one thing I realized through this is we both deal with grief and sad times very differently, which was really interesting. I am very emotional and kind of upfront with my emotions. So if something makes me sad, I cry, and I just have to let it out and then talk about it afterwards. Bri, he more shuts down a little bit, and is just more calm. And one thing he did is he really cared for me. So I think part of his healing and dealing with grief was actually looking after me, because he did such a good job. I know he was hurt too, but since I was technically on bed rest or whatever, he actually made dinner that night. And this is gonna sound so weird, but that was one of the best meals I have ever had. He's actually a really good cook. We both like to cook and everything. And it was a meal that I like and we have often, but something about that dinner just was so special that night and comforting. He made baked salmon, and then these diced up sweet potatoes that we bake in the oven. We make that all the time, and some vegetables. I just remember I had been crying. He went down and made dinner, and he brought it up, and it was just so comforting and so good. And something about that meal made me feel just a little bit better. So he just really took care of me, and for him, I think that was his way of kind of trying to feel better too, was trying to comfort me. And then of course we would talk about it afterwards, after the initial heartbreak and stuff. And one thing I'm really thankful for is hard times, I know, in a marriage or any relationship can either tear a relationship apart or make it weaker, or you can choose to be closer to that person and really lean on them for strength, and it can actually strengthen your relationship. And I feel like this was a time where our marriage really was strengthened through this. We learned how to comfort each other. We learned how to rely on each other for strength and for comfort. ultimately, of course, relying on God, but in a marriage, when you're two believers, you have that in common, and you're there to encourage each other and lift each other up. And I feel like that really happened, and I feel so much closer to my husband because of this whole experience. So the day after that I started to miscarry, I got the call from the doctor about my blood test results, and like I told you already, they said that my pregnancy hormone was really, really low. It showed that I was pregnant, but it was low. So it was obvious that I was miscarrying, which I already knew when I got home that night. They also told me that I have a negative blood type, so I needed to get something called Rogam. It's like a injection. I'm not going to go too much into it on this video, but if you guys want to know more about what that means and everything, if you don't, I can definitely do a separate video on that. I did find out though that this miscarriage had nothing to do with that. We actually don't know why I had a miscarriage. I'm a very healthy person. The doctor even said that I have no health issues whatsoever. And there was no obvious cause. So it's just, this is so common, and this is just how it happened. That day, I also called my parents and told them the bad news, and they were very understanding. They were very sad too. We also told Bry's dad, same thing, very sad. And then that Sunday, we told all our friends at church, and it was overwhelming, the amount of love and support we received from those at church. Just the hugs, the prayers, the comforting words were so special. And it made me so thankful for our little community that we have at our church, and for the people that we have around us, because they were so supportive and encouraging during this time to us. And I really, really needed it, especially with my parents being up north, so I can't have like my mom and stuff like with me here in person. That was really special to have those people there. I think that's just a good lesson to know that God has created us to have relationships with people. We are meant to do life alone. We're meant to do it with other people, whether that be in a marriage or just friendships, and friendships that are practically like family, or all of that. I think it's so important for believers to be involved at a church and to have those people around you that are going to lift you up when you are going through hard times, and encourage you and comfort you, but also keep you accountable too. So we really experienced that during this time and are so thankful and blessed by that. So I want to just quickly say that after this whole miscarriage and everything, I was very hurt, obviously grieving. I felt like I had lost my child, and I did. And I'm going to go more into like what my thought process was through all this and what God has taught me through it. But I do want to touch on my second miscarriage just very quickly. So months went by. We were actually trying, after I'd done miscarrying and stuff, we started trying as soon as we could. On January 17th, I got a positive pregnancy test for my second pregnancy, but literally 2 days later, I miscarried again. So I was excited. We were both excited, but this second time, we were both very unsure on how to react or how to feel, because yes, I did have that joy, but I was very, very reserved and scared of miscarrying again and going through that again. So I was very guarded with my emotions, and we didn't even get to share it with anyone really before miscarrying, because it was literally 2 days later. So that was a very quick pregnancy to miscarriage time, even shorter than the last time. So I really don't have much to share about that particular one. But it was definitely hard miscarrying again, because basically there's like statistics and stuff, and once you have 2 miscarriages in a row, the rates for having a successful pregnancy go down significantly. But obviously, I don't like to look at statistics. Like, I know that they're there and everything, but I know ultimately God is the one that's in control. And if we are to have a baby, it's going to happen, no matter what statistics say. So now I want to share some things that God has taught me through this experience, and hopefully some encouragement and hope for you that are going through a miscarriage, or maybe you have a friend, a family member, or maybe your husband that's watching this and your wife has experienced this and you're just wondering what they're going through and how to comfort them. Obviously, I don't know how I would have gotten through this and how I would have processed everything if it weren't for my relationship with Christ. I think I would be depressed, honestly. Because it was really, really hard on me. But the fact that I have my relationship with Christ and that I was able to talk to him through all of this and go to his word and be comforted and encouraged by what it says in the Bible. And also to know that ultimately everything happens for a reason and that he has a plan and purpose, that I have hope in him, really brought me through this, and I believe brought me healing faster, and then healing just at all. Whereas if I didn't have that relationship with Christ, I don't know what it would be like. Like, I don't even want to imagine. One thing that did help was, crying, releasing that emotion, but also speaking through God through the process of grieving and just being honest with him, telling him that I was hurt, that I felt broken, that I felt crushed, that this was really hard. I would also ask him questions, and even if they were questions that I wasn't necessarily going to get an answer to or expect an answer, it was good for me to just put those out there and be honest with God, with how I was feeling and what I wanted to know and what was going through my head. But a verse that really stuck out to me, and I had actually shared this verse on Instagram and had told you guys that I was going through a hard time, but I wasn't specific about what it was. But it was Psalm 34:18, and it says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." So this verse just really comforted me because it showed, even though I felt crushed in spirit and I felt brokenhearted, that God is still close with me and he was there to comfort me through my hurt and my pain. And I really found that to be true. Like I said, by speaking to him, but then opening up his word, the Bible, and finding hope in it. So one story that really stuck out to me is in 1 Samuel, and it is the story of Hannah. So this story can be found in 1 Samuel 1 and 2, and it is such a comforting story. Yes, to those who have dealt with miscarriage or any type of infertility, but also just really for any prayer that you may have that you feel has gone unanswered. Hannah was a woman who had been praying to God to have a child, and she was experiencing infertility. She was not able to conceive a child. But finally, she's praying to God, and she tells him that if he gives her a son, she will give her son back to him. And so God hears her prayer, and he grants it, and she becomes pregnant and has a son, and she raises him until he is weaned, and then she brings him to the temple to grow up in the temple to do the Lord's work, because she said that she would give him to the Lord. So that's such a beautiful story of God answering her prayer, but then she has to come and give her son away to God. And when I read this, I felt like I was able to connect with it so well, because I felt like God had answered our prayers and given us a baby, but then our baby was taken away and is now in the presence of the Lord, which, first of all, thinking of that is crazy, because yes, I am brokenhearted and sad that we didn't get to raise our baby, but both of our babies at least there's two, I don't know if there's more, but we know of two at least, are in the presence of God. They are in heaven. They are in a place where they have never had to experience tears or hurt or brokenness or sin. They are in a place where they are in complete joy and peace in the presence of God, which is just incredible to think about. They're in the best possible place they could ever be, in the arms of their Creator and Savior. So I am so thankful for that. But this story continues on. In verse 21 is the specific verse that I'm talking about. And it says, "Indeed, the Lord visited Hannah, and she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the boy, Samuel, the one that she had given to God and to be raised up in the temple, grew in the presence of the Lord." So first of all, she prays to God, asks him for a son. God answers her prayer, and then she obeys God and is faithful in what she had promised God, and brings her son, her one son that God has given her, gives him to be raised up by the priests in the temple. But then God turns around and blesses her later on with 3 sons and 2 daughters. Isn't that incredible? God just overdoes it. He like, seriously guys, like, we serve such a great God. If Jesus were to just do what he did on the cross, which God gave his only son, Jesus spent his life here on earth. He experienced heartache and brokenness that is caused by our sin, not his sin, because he is perfect. But he went and took on the sin of the world and went and died on the cross for us. And now whoever believes in him, instead of suffering punishment for eternity, which is hell because of our sin, we now can believe in him and spend eternity with him in heaven. If God were to just do that for us, that is already the greatest gift we could ever receive. And it is the greatest gift that we can receive. And that is enough. That is so good. That is love. But the fact that God chooses to bless us even more in other small and big ways is just crazy. It just shows how great and how wide and how deep the love of our Savior and Lord is. Also, just looking at this story of Hannah and also seeing the correlation of the story of the cross, the fact that God gave his only son up, and he knows what that feels like, and he willingly gave his only son up. And then also just the fact that while Jesus was here on earth, he experienced many of the hurts and the heartbreaks that we will go through in our life or have gone through in our life. Jesus experienced grief when his friend Lazarus died, and it says that he wept. So just knowing that my own Savior and Lord has experienced the same hurt that I've experienced, and he can relate with me in that, and he chooses to comfort me through that experience, that just brings me even more comfort. But this story of Hannah just really comforted me and gave me hope. And I know that God has given me a desire, a deep desire within my heart and my being to be a mom. And he's given that same desire to Bri, to be a dad. We want kids, and we know that's just not a want, but it's like this longing from God. And I know that God doesn't give us those longings just to laugh in our faces and be like, haha, I gave you this longing and now I'm not going to fulfill that longing. No, God is good, he is great, and he is faithful. I have hope and trust in him that we will have kids someday. But I know that whenever, however, that God is going to fulfill his promises that he has given us, that he is going to be faithful. And that is a promise and a hope that we can hold on to as believers in Jesus Christ, because he is faithful and he is good. God has just been showing me how to open up about my experience, to be vulnerable in order to give him the glory through this experience. So just to update you guys now, Brylan and I are still trying for a baby. We're still praying, so we would really appreciate your prayers as well. If you think of us, pray for us that God would give us that gift of allowing to carry a baby to full term, hopefully, and having kids and everything, starting our family. So we'd really appreciate your prayers, and I hope you guys found this encouraging or helpful in any way. And if you do feel open, if not, it's okay. But if you want to share any experiences down below that maybe this brought up, or if you have any prayer requests, I would love to hear from you guys. That is everything I have to share. Again, I hope you found this encouraging or helpful or relatable. And I love you all so much. Remember to do everything in love because you are lovely. Bye.